Hey guys, welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. Earlier this week, I put out a video where I drew this woodpecker with my dot grid or hidden grid system. And I told you that later this week I would be painting it, and so that's what we're gonna do today. I'm going to be making this painting, and during the process, I may come in and give you some fun facts about these guys, these pileated woodpeckers, while I'm painting. So we'll get into it right away here, but before I do, I wanna thank you for watching. And as well as that, I would like to mention, if you do enjoy stuff like this, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It makes a huge difference for the channel. It's easier to remind you guys in the beginning of the video because come the end of it, there's a better chance you're not watching. So if you do enjoy this video today or you learned something new, do me a favor, hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll get right into this painting. I'm gonna start with the background, and then I will remove this tape because I want the bird and some of this wood to poke off the sides. So we'll go ahead right into the background here. I'm gonna get some water and I'll get zoom in and we'll start with some of the facts. Okay, so let's read some information about these guys. So you can call them pileated or pileated woodpeckers. I don't know which one I'm going to say. I'll probably flip between the two. But to begin with, let's do a brief description. So the pileated or pileated woodpecker, or Dryocopus pileatus, is a large crow-sized woodpecker with a prominent red crest and white neck stripe and a mostly black body. So we kind of know this. We've seen these. I've seen these plenty of times. You know what this bird already looks like because you've seen the thumbnail for this painting video. But this is kind of how you can identify them in the wild. They're fairly large for a woodpecker, especially very close to the size of a crow. Native to North America, where it is the largest confirmed extant woodpecker species. So largest species of woodpecker in North America, third largest in the world after the great slaty woodpecker and the black woodpecker. You can find these guys in deciduous forests in eastern North America, the Great Lakes, the boreal forests of Canada, and parts of the Pacific coast. So woodpecker is primarily an insectivore, meaning that it eats bugs, especially the ones that live in trees. And that's kind of why they've developed this ability to drill into the wood like that. They will peck. Famous for making large, nearly rectangular carvings into trees, which they then use to extract prey inside the tree or to make a nest. So they will nest inside these as well as dig the bugs out of the trees. It does have quite a large range, like I said, causing it to be categorized as a species of least concern when it comes to its So there's two main subspecies of the pileated woodpecker that are recognized, and those species are the northern pileated and the southern pileated. So the northern was initially observed by Outram Bangs in 1898, 100 years before I was born. That enough morphological differences existed between the two types to classify the northern as its own subspecies. They're found in southern Canada through western, north central, northeastern United States. And then there's the southern, which are found in the southeast United States. So the ones that I took a picture of is more than likely a southern pileated woodpecker. The woodpecker that I painted turns out that it is a female, and the way that you can tell the difference is they all have the red crest and a white line down the sides. However, adult males have a red line from the bill to the throat, and adult females, they're just black. And hers in this picture that I took and the painting that I'm making is just black, and so that's how we know that it's a female woodpecker. Adults are 40 to 49 centimeters or 16 to 19 inches in length, and they have a wingspan of up to 75 centimeters or 30 inches across. And they weigh between 225 and 400 grams, which is less than a pound, 7.9 to 14-ish ounces. The average weight of males and females combined is about 9.8 ounces. Males are typically larger than females, and so when they add the two together and combine them all, the average weight is a little less than 10 ounces. Males, the average is about 11, and the females, the average is about 9. One of the main differences between southern and northern woodpeckers, pileated woodpeckers, is the size. The ones in the south are typically smaller, which is to be expected. I think for the most part, animals found in warmer regions tend to be a little smaller than animals found in colder regions. It's a lot easier to keep warm in an area that's a lot colder than it is to keep warm to shed heat. So smaller animals shed heat better, and larger animals retain it. And so typically when it's colder, animals will get a little bigger. So the ones that are more up north, the ones that are more in the cold, they tend to be a little larger.
So I've come in here and I put a base background in. That's going to do it for my background for now. I don't want it to be the focal point, and so I am kind of being pretty loose with it just because I will be more exact and more tight with my paintbrush in the foreground, and that's going to make you not focus on this background as much. So you can see me kind of blending things in here. I just want it to all kind of blend together behind the bird because it's not the important part. So now that I've got that, I'm going to remove 1, 2, 3 pieces of tape and leave this one so it doesn't move while I'm painting it, so it stays in the frame nicely. And then we can get onto this piece of wood, and then we can paint the woodpecker itself.
So let's talk a little bit more about their behavior. We're going to start with the feeding. I mentioned already that they do chip out large, roughly rectangular holes in trees looking for bugs. They really love to eat ants. And so what they'll do is they will dig this hole into where an ant colony is in the tree, and then they have these really long tongue, and they will kind of stick them in there and lap them up like an anteater will. They are good at climbing. That's pretty standard for most birds, but with the woodpeckers especially, they've developed and evolved in ways where they're really good at holding onto the side of a vertical surface. But they can seem awkward eating fruits and berries on small branches and in vines. They are pretty big, so vines and small branches are a little more difficult for them. They're more made for holding on to the trunks of the trees. They do also forage on the ground or near the ground, especially around fallen and dead trees, which contain a variety of insect life. Think grubs and more ants and beetles and things. If you've ever been out in the woods, I'm sure you flip over a log, there's lots of bugs and stuff crawling around underneath it. And these guys are looking especially for that. This forage technique is especially common after a forest fire, where pileated woodpeckers have been seen flocking to downed trees in search of insects that try to take refuge in them, which is pretty cool. They've learned over the years that when the forest burns down, the bugs will go into some of the larger trees, and when they fall down, they're a lot easier to get to.
So I've gone ahead and put the first coats of paint down on this piece of wood here. Obviously, it doesn't look like much right now. I'm going to go in and do some of my pen lining for the foreground just to get it done and to have a little bit more guidance for when I paint the bird and a little more guidance for when I do more details in this piece of wood here. So let's do that really quickly.
So let's talk about their breeding behavior. They engage in many courtship displays, such as drumming, bill waving, and woik calls to get a mate or communicate with a pre-existing one. Once they've found a mate, they typically will stay together for life, like a lot of other birds. The pileated woodpecker can nest in boxes about 4.6 meters or 15 feet off the ground, but usually they will excavate their large nests in the cavities of dead trees. They make such large holes in dead trees that the holes can cause a tree to break in half, which is crazy. And the nesting holes are mostly made by the male. The female is involved when assisting the male during the process, but primarily the male is the one who digs out the large hole. In early spring, the woodpecker pair begins to make a hole, and the work continues throughout the season. The cavity is unlined except for wood chips. During the process of picking the nest site and making the hole, the pair uses tapping as a primary form of communication. Sometimes you can catch them starting to make a nest and then abandon it to build a new nest elsewhere, but this spot can be revisited in the future. They may also move to another site if any eggs have fallen out of the nest, which apparently is a rare habit in birds. I guess because they are nesting in trees, if the eggs fall out, it's pretty obvious to predators that, hey, there's a nest up here, and they will kind of leave the area and go make a new nest to protect the rest of their young, which I guess makes sense. Females lay between 3 to 5 eggs in late spring, and both parents will incubate them for 12 to 16 days. Young can take about a month to fledge, which is to develop flying feathers. Okay, here, this is funny. So once the chicks have been raised, the birds will abandon the hole and they will not use the same site next year, especially since most nesting sites are built in dead trees and things like that. They're not structurally sound, and so they'll not be fit for another breeding season. A year from now, this already dying tree with a giant hole in it probably won't be any good. So that's pretty funny. Old nest sites may be used as roosting holes by other woodpeckers that can be expanded throughout the years. However, if that does not happen, these holes, made similarly by all woodpeckers, provide good homes in future years for many forest songbirds and a wide variety of other animals. I'm sure you have seen cartoons and animations of owls sitting in these holes in a tree. The owls don't make them, the woodpeckers are the ones that make them. Tree nesting ducks rely on holes made by pileated woodpeckers. Even mammals such as raccoons may use them. Other woodpeckers, smaller birds, may be attracted to the holes to feed on the insects found within them. Essentially, what I'm saying is ecologically, the entire woodpecker family is important to the well-being of many other bird species. I like that. That's pretty cool. Pileated woodpeckers are not migratory birds, which means that they will stay in their territory year-round. They defend it in all seasons, but they do tolerate floaters during the winter. When defending their nest from either rival birds or from a different species, the female is more involved. When clashing with them, they engage in wing and crest imitation displays, chasing, high-pitched calling, striking with the wings, jabbing with the bill. Drumming is used to proclaim territory, and they often do this on hollow trees to make the most resonant sound possible. The pattern is typically a fairly slow, deep rolling that lasts about 3 seconds. So I'm going to play 2 sounds for you. It's going to be one of the bird calls and then what their drums will sound like. So here's the call. And now let's hear what the display drum sounds like. So I'm sure that you have heard those before, especially if you're here on the East Coast. These guys are everywhere, and that's a sound that when I realized that that's what the woodpeckers sound like, I hear it all the time, which is really crazy. It's like one of those things where whenever you buy a new car, you see it, the same car that you just bought everywhere because now you're looking out for it, whether you realize it or not. It's the same kind of deal here. I learned what these guys sound like, and now when I hear it's not just a bird, now it's, oh, that's a woodpecker, or more specifically a pileated woodpecker. That's really cool to me. I really love learning that kind of stuff, as then I can say it to my friends and they all think I'm a weirdo.
Okay, so there's a lot of my colors down. We are going to come in now, once this dries, with some of my white pen and white marker here. These are going to be to add some highlights. Obviously, this guy's a little thicker mark, and it goes down a little thicker paint-wise, whereas this guy's just kind of like a gel pen. So this is for more fine detail. This is for more heavy detail. We're going to let this dry so that it doesn't bleed into these too bad, and then I will come back and I can do some more of the highlighting portion here.
So I mentioned earlier predators, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the common predators for these guys. So when it comes to the nest, a lot of predators are things like martens, which is like a weasel, other weasels, squirrels, rat snakes, foxes. These predators usually wait for the adult woodpeckers to leave the nest, and they attack the nestlings, or they try to trap the birds inside the nest by sneaking up on them, climbing up the tree, things like that. They will try to intimidate these attackers if they are caught in this situation, flapping their wings, moving their heads around a lot. And if and when that fails, they will try to strike the attacker with the bill. After an encounter like this, they often try to find a new nest so that they can avoid repeat attacks from the same predator. Same thing when the eggs fall out of the nest. For the same reason, they don't want to have to deal with it in the future, so they just go somewhere else.
So the wood here, I think, could use some more shadows. So what I'm going to do is actually get myself some of this purple from up top here and add it to this color here, just to give me a little bit more interesting of a color. And we're going to throw that in all of my shadow areas.
So fully grown adults that are capable of flight don't have as many predators as the young would, obviously, but some of their common predators include, birds of prey, Cooper's hawks, northern goshawks, red-shouldered hawks, red-tailed hawks, great horned owls, bald eagles, golden eagles, barred owls, things like that will ambush the woodpecker mid-flight, try to surprise it. Because they are strong. Obviously, they dig these huge holes in the trees. Their bills are quite powerful, and so the predators of the adults will try to ambush them mid-flight, so it's harder for them to defend themselves. In response to sightings of these birds of prey, they will typically climb up the tree to get a better view and use alarm calls so they can tell others around them what they have seen or what they have heard, or as a potential distraction to the attacker. Additionally, they can fly in unpredictable patterns to evade capture, or like I said earlier, they have a strong beak they can use to try to fend off these attacking birds. So like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to their conservation status, these guys are really not threatened at all. And the reason for this is because they do live in these trees, they have adapted quite well to some urban areas where, parks or suburban areas with large trees, they can live in those trees. And so they can kind of work pretty well with human habitation. Obviously, you'd rather have a full forest for these birds to live in, but in the event of forest being taken down, usually they leave some trees in, parks and things like that. There have additionally been efforts to restore woodlands that these guys are native to, removing invasive plants such as honeysuckle and buckthorn. Seems to be quite a bit of a benefit to the population of these woodpeckers. The removal of brush and shrubbery helps them when it comes to foraging on the ground and things like that.
And so at this stage, I'm kind of just refining. I'm squinting my eyes every once in a while. Let's do a squint test now. So I'm going to blur the page, and I think the bird stands out really nicely. I think that this could be a little darker down here, and maybe I'll even darken up this tree up top just to make sure that this part stands out better from it.
It's estimated to be about 2.6 million of these pileated woodpeckers living in North America, which is quite a lot. And it says here that this number is growing. So from 1966 to 2015, their population on average has increased by more than 1.5% per year, which is awesome. You know, it's good to see any species increasing in population because so many of them are decreasing in population. Despite them being non-migratory birds, they are protected by the U.S. Migratory Bird Act, which we've talked about before. Seems like every bird that I do a video on is protected by this act. And essentially what that is 100 years ago, I think more than that, they put together this act to protect a lot of the migratory species of birds, things like cardinals and anhingas and cormorants, and these guys, even though they're not migratory, to help them from being caught in the pet trade and killed for their feathers or their meat or just for the hell of it. And so there's a large list of birds that are on this, that are covered under this act, and these guys are one of them. They do cause a little bit of stress and strife for people from time to time. They are considered harmful when found on certain people's properties just because of the damage that can be traced back to them. You know, they do dig very large holes in trees. They also will do it into the sides of homes. They've been seen making nesting holes in newly placed telephone poles, which obviously not good for the telephone poles. I think that's hilarious. So what did you expect? You put a giant piece of wood in the middle of the territory of a bird that likes to dig into giant pieces of wood, but I could see how that would be a problem for people.
So now, like I said, since I darkened this guy up and it's dried, I can come back here and add a rim light. I'm going to close that down because it's kind of in my way.
One more thing here, if you're familiar with woody woodpecker, it is believed that his appearance is based on the pileated woodpecker. However, the sound that he makes is not based on the pileated woodpecker. They believe it is to be based on the call of an acorn woodpecker, which I will play here for you. So you can see it's a little different than the ones that we heard earlier, but that's pretty neat. I think that's really cool. It's cool to see kind of the inspiration that people get behind different subjects in pop culture. But that's going to do it for all my facts. I don't know how far I am along in the painting, but we'll finish up and we can finish up the video as well.
All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you once again for watching. I really appreciate all the views that I get. By watching all the way to the end, you're showing me that this is something that you're interested in. Do me a favor, and if it is something that you really enjoyed, if it's something that you'd like to see more of, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell, share with your friends, all the standard YouTube things. Makes a huge difference for the channel, and it shows me what content you guys like, and it helps me to know what content I need to be posting more of and making more footage of. So thank you. I really do appreciate it all. YouTube thinks that you will like this video up here, and there's a little circle here you can click that will send you to my channel. Other than that, I think that's going to do it. Thank you guys once again so very much for watching. I really truly am grateful, and I will see you in the next one.